Hi and welcome to Group 3 Team video. In this video, we're going to cover an article published by ABC News about difficulties that Australia is facing due to the coronavirus. We will be discussing Australian management concepts, conflict, decision-making, and team. First, I will introduce the article to you. Due to the slower spreading of coronavirus, some economists suggest that it's time to release the social distance restriction. They state that as the restriction be placed longer, it may lead to a higher possibility of other issues, such as business failure, mortgage defaults, domestic violence, and mental health problems. They suggest that government should release the restriction of the youth due to they have lower possibility to get infected and the ability to rerun the market. However, the socialists said the risk is too high for doing that. They give a chart showing how fast the virus can spread. As shown in the chart, only 2 people can cause thousands of people get infected, so the snowball effect has to be considered seriously. As they said, Australia may benefit from losing the restriction in the short term, but will eventually lead to a long-term failure. Keep the restriction will avoid thousands of unnecessary deaths. According to a survey of a group of authoritative scholars in Australia, 77.1% of them agree or strongly agree to keep the social distance restriction, and only 15.4% of them have objections on it.
What took a lot of proportion in the news is conflict. It refers to the process when a party's wants are negatively affected by another party. The conflict between them is regarded as an intergroup conflict. It is a conflict raised in different departments and often occurs when a group has inconsistent goal or reward system. In the chosen article, it mainly discusses the conflict between economists those suggest losing social distance restriction or Australian economic will be severely injured, and socialists who think this decision will lead to a more serious negative result than the short-term benefits. Team members are all willing to do what they think benefits the group the most. In this case, both economists and socialists want to save Australia from the impact of coronavirus, but their goal is different. One is citizens' health and life, when the other is economic and future city development. The reason why they can get unified is, as Halston and Greenland state in their article, Intergroup Conflict in 2000, team members developed their view as they are the center of everything, and all others are rated with reference to it. Both of them think their own academic field has a priority among the Australian society. However, conflict can be either functional or dysfunctional. With well management, a functional conflict can help increasing the effectiveness of the project. According to Thong, Xiaorong, and Qing Hong, functional conflict help to recognize the different viewpoints between parties. It transforms the implicit knowledge into explicit knowledge and enable members to share and exchange their information to generate more ideas. In this case, through the conflict process, economists and socialists are able to share their point of view to each other and discuss. As they have enough knowledge on each other's position, the conflict will be reasonable and is easily to come up with the most suitable solution for Australia.
The dilemma of reopening the economy or not results in a hard decision-making style that the government has to face. Following the rational decision-making model, the government will make decisions that will be optimum, furthering the country's best interest. During the pandemic, governments have had to make very important decisions in the last month. They are following the 4 steps of the rational decision-making model. Firstly, they have to identify the problem. Secondly, they have to come up with alternative solutions. Then, they have to evaluate alternatives. And lastly, they must implement and evaluate the solution chosen. According to the article, Improving Evidence Base for Decision-Making During a Pandemic, some responses to the fast spread may include deploying or reassigning public health workers to pandemic-related activities, acquiring supplies such as antivirals, antibiotics, etc., and commencing non-pharmaceutical interventions such as school closure. Once the measures to prevent the pandemic are implemented, governments also need to take into consideration that the control of measures may be cost-effective. That is why, to successfully implement major decisions, it is important that decision makers plan carefully the different strategies to deal with the problem, and that they are sensitive to those affected by the measures. Decision makers must allocate limited resources to stop the virus. A country may not only be limited by the amount of money, but also by the health personnel, infrastructure to treat the disease, information, etc. That is why the availability bias may occur in this situation given that managers use information readily available from memory to make judgments. The hindsight bias, which is the tendency of people to view events as being more predictable than what they really are, happens during the pandemic. Some governments have truly overestimated the pandemic. On the other hand, decision makers must determine when to set policies in motion, when to change existing policies, and which decisions to delay. Managers should use the three criteria question and ask themselves if what they are doing is ultimately effective, if it is feasible, and lastly, if it is ethical or not. The economists in the article are using the evidence-based style to analyze the crisis. Through business analytics and with all the information and facts that they have, they are working out the impact on the overall society of reopening or not the economy. Big data is very useful to analyze in depth what outcomes it may have reopening the economy. However, those economies may face the sunk cost bias, which happens when managers add up all the money already spent on a project and conclude it is too costly to simply abandon it. Governments have already spent a lot of money to minimize the impact of the pandemic, which may affect them when making decisions. Finally, the economists in the article should follow a ethical decision tree to make sure that when they evaluate if reopening the economy is the right thing to do or not, they take into consideration all the negative outcomes that it may have.
Hi, I'm Jenny. Today I'm going to talk about the project teams and give some feedback about these case studies. Project teams they do creative problem savings and often by applying the specialized knowledges of cross-function team members. In these case studies, the economists choose two participants are economist leaders in fields include microeconomics, economic modeling, and public policy. These members have specialized knowledges of economy. They can provide different opinions to solve the problems of whether Australia keeps social distance, which when coronavirus isolation has hurt the economies. Besides the Economic Society of Australia conversation conjunction with Monash University, built on the national surveys, the leaders solve these problems combined with the national survey. As a result, they decided to reopen the economy is the right thing. In conclusion, in future management studies as a team member, it's essential to solve the conflicts in teamwork reasonably. If limited information and a narrow range of alternatives, they will result in decision-making deficits. Therefore, maintaining a normal number of constructive conflicts is more conducive to teams' creativities and making informed decisions than overly united atmospheres and builds confidence. In addition, there is no doubt that if a team member can positively conflict at work and work more contributions by sharing their personal opinions, it will be more opportunities to gain the promotion. In addition, the rational decision-making model can make the most logical decision in line with the organization interests. Moreover, rational methods are often needed to study and analyze the existing evidence to provide information for the decision-making process to help identify problems and think up the solutions. In these case studies, following the rational decision model, the governments will make decisions that will be optimal, following the country's interests. As a result, using the direct style of decision-making could improve decision-making skills because use of rational decision-making models. Additionally, these skills are essential for us to enhance our competitiveness and benefit in our future management studies because improving decision-making efficiency and providing benefits to make decisions which can save more time and improving work performance.
And here is our reference list. That's all of our team video. Thanks for listening and have a good day.